Wyleaner Show are those of the guests and are not necessarily the views and opinions of the hostess Wyleaner and or her co-host.
She's always giving me reality. With love she imparts a sound of the heart. She'll get to the door, will make you grow. I wanna find out what you need to know. Darling is the golden know. Where the river meets the road. I'm not saying the white river show.
It's the final cut. Black History Month, yes indeed. This is the final show, part 4 of the Black Church, past, present, origin, future. And today we are going to be talking about the future of the Black Church. And I have some information for y'all today. And y'all know who I am. I'm Wyleaner, the Las Vegas Queen of Gospel. And I'm back with you again today with my guest, Rabbi Washanti Tamariham. And my other guest that was supposed to be here with me, Minister Tyrone Wiley, is running late. And I believe in putting folks on blast. So he might show up, and if he do, I'll go ahead and let him sit on in with us when he gets here. Okay, so listen, everybody, I want to welcome you all back to the Wyleaner Show. Welcome everybody back that is watching out there on WyleanerTVShow.com. Hey, y'all, and everybody who's watching on KKVV.com, and everybody who is listening out there on KKVV 1060 AM Las Vegas on your radio dial. And I want to give a shout out to the staff here at KKVV and the staff, and my loved ones, everybody that's loving me, all of my peoples, all of my folks, and those that don't love me either. I tell you what, y'all talking about me out there, and that's a good thing. I just love it. All right, so today we're going to be getting down to the nitty-gritty, to the heart of the matter of the future of the Black Church, and I got some stuff I want to share with you. You know, I like to share that information with you, and so we're going to do that today, and I have my guests back, and I'm going to allow my guests to do some elaboration and some talking. So I tell you what, we're going to take a break, and y'all know what's going to happen. I got to go pay the bills, but when we come back, you know the rubber is gonna meet the road. See you in a minute.
Did you realize that right now, 1 of every 3 drivers of the road is cruising around in a state of skepticism? Why? Because they're full of questions about how much value their car insurance company is actually bringing to the party. And the way these drivers are getting answers is by shopping and comparing. If you're one of them, State Farm agent Mike Whitford in Las Vegas can help you get to a better state. If all of that is starting to make you feel a little less skeptical, now's the time to call State Farm agent Mike Whitford in Las Vegas at 702-463-2400. That's 702-463-2400 and get to a better state with State Farm.
Okay, everybody. Now, listen, first of all, I just want to make sure to tell you that you can contact me at WyleanerTVShow at AOL.com. That's WyleanerTVShow at AOL.com. And you can also contact me by visiting my website and make a donation to the site and to the show at WyleanerTVShow.com. WyleanerTVShow.com. Okay, and so I have some information that I want to share with you today, and we're going to start the show out with a clip that I like to pull these clips from YouTube, and I find a lot of very interesting stuff there. And so I'm going to share this with you today, and this is going to be a big part of our discussion today. So listen up, everybody. Stay tuned.
When we talk about the issue of Black religion, we have to deal with the concept of holiness. All religions claim to be holy to some degree, to be manifested with a certain energy or a power to take individuals from where they are to where they need to be spiritually. But this concept of holiness is something that is often misunderstood by lay people. And it is a concept that religions, although they claim to be the embodiment of wholeness, are totally neglectful of. The root root word for holiness is to be whole. So for a religion to be whole, that means it has to deal with the whole circumference of challenges that face black people. You can't just deal with faith. You can't just deal with belief. You can't just deal with money collection. You can't just deal with Bible or Quranic study. To be holy is to deal with the whole list of problems that black people have. Simply stated, in order to be holy, you have to be dealing with the spiritual as well as the political needs of African people. But we find with most black religions, they are not holy. They do not deal with the whole spectrum of problems that affect black people. They limit themselves to one thing, preparing you to die.
Oh. Okay, I did the wrong thing there, y'all. So y'all gonna have to just kind of be patient with me here for a minute. I sort of, me and this technical stuff, I tell you the truth.
When we talk about the issue of black religion, we have to deal with the concept of holiness. All religions claim to be holy to some degree, to be manifested with a certain energy or a power to take individuals from where they are to where they need to be spiritually. But this concept of holiness is something that is often misunderstood by lay people. And it is a concept that religions, although they claim to be the embodiment of wholeness, are totally neglectful of. The root word for holiness is to be whole. So for a religion to be whole, that means it has to deal with the whole circumference of challenges that face black people. You can't just deal with faith. You can't just deal with belief. You can't just deal with money collection. You can't just deal with Bible or Quranic study. To be holy is to deal with the whole list of problems that black people have. Simply stated, in order to be holy, you have to be dealing with the spiritual as well as the political needs of African people. But we find with most black religions, they are not holy. They do not deal with the whole spectrum of problems that affect black people. They limit themselves to one thing, preparing you to die peacefully and preparing you for life in the afterworld. And as a result of that, black people are crying out. We are spiritually destitute, we are spiritually hungry, and we are spiritually impoverished. Because when we go to the church, when we go to the mosque, when we go to the temple, we're coming out feeling no better than we did when we went in. Of course, there's a temporary feeling of euphoria. There is an emotional high that surrounds black religion. And for a little while after the service, one might feel as if they benefited from it. But just like when an alcoholic is no longer being influenced by the alcohol, or just like a cocaine user is no longer being influenced by the cocaine, once the high wears off, black people find themselves that they're right where they were when they started. Now, the spiritual poverty is very, very major. And one of the reasons why we suffer such spiritual poverty in black religion is because black religion has severed all ties with ancient African spiritual practices. Black religion has cut the umbilical cord from its spiritual parent, which is the ancient African spiritual systems. When we look at religion and compare it to spirituality, Brother Curtis, we find that there's some very distinct features of spirituality that are not embodied in religion. And there's some very distinct features of religion that are not embodied in spirituality. For example, in religion, there's the concept of paying for forgiveness. When you read the Quran, when you read the Bible, when you study the culture of Christianity, the culture of Islam, and of course we know that the culture of Christianity is heavily influenced by European Christendom because they ruled the religion for so many years. And the same thing with Islam, it is heavily influenced by Arab culture because they have basically ruled the religion for so many years, which is another issue because you cannot separate religion. You cannot separate religion from the culture that groomed it. You cannot separate religion from the culture that groomed it. And unfortunately, the culture that grooms the religion tends to pattern the religion after its own cultural belief system. So as a result of that, in Islam, you see a degree of sexism that's even higher than the degree of sexism you find in Christianity because of the sexist nature of some, but not all, Arab cultures. Very important that we recognize that. Just like in Christianity, the imagery is totally European. Why? Because it reflects the culture that nursed Christianity from its dark ages, and that would be the European culture. But let's get back to some of these differences. In religion is the concept of paying for forgiveness, the concept of tithe. In Islam, the concept of giving 1/5 of what you earn to the church, okay, or the masjid, in an attempt to expiate some of your sins. There's all types of sayings in black religion that talk about how you have to pay your way out of sin. But when you deal with spirituality, money is irrelevant. Money plays no role in spirituality. One may choose to spend their money for righteous causes, but the spending of money and the giving away of money in and of itself does not expiate one person from their sin. And unfortunately, we have a situation now where rich people have come to believe that they are sinless. How is it that so many rich people have come to believe that they are sinless? It's because they have been nurtured in religious systems that say the more money you give, the less accountable you are for your errors. So you have a lot of rich black people who are giving millions of dollars to churches in exchange for freedom from their sins, which couldn't be furthest from the truth, because both Muhammad, Jesus, Moses, all of these spiritual leaders who black people believe in and follow have argued repeatedly the point that it would be easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter heaven, which is ironic that we see so many black rich people who think they're going to heaven because they've given so much money away to the church, which is by design. Churches are businesses. Black people have a hard time accepting this. The masjid is a business. The Roman Catholic Church is a business. The Baptist Temple is a business. And most of the New Age black nationalist religions are also businesses. They exist to make money. And because they exist to make money, they always put features within the belief system that feeds the capitalistic agenda. Also in religion, we are taught that you have to find God. You must go on a search for God. But in spirituality, you simply are taught that you have to become aware of the pre-existing relationship you already have from the Creator. So there is no search for God because you are already one with God. You simply have to grow into the consciousness and awareness of your oneness with all that is, with your oneness with being, with your oneness with the supreme ruler of the universe. Now, the interesting things that religions do is they create a system where they put themselves between you and God. They put themselves between you and God, so the preacher becomes your attorney for God. The imam becomes your attorney for God. The temple leader becomes your attorney for God. Just like when you go into court, you need to have an attorney to argue your case to the judge. Okay? Religion has set up the same sort of a judicial system when it comes to getting into paradise, where they teach you have to have an attorney in order to argue on your behalf to God that you have a right to the afterlife. And so the preacher is your attorney. The imam is your attorney. And they have very skillfully convinced black people that you have to belong to a church, you have to belong to a mosque, you have to belong to a temple in order for you to be on God's good side, which is interesting because most of these institutions, because they're not holy, many of them are not even on God's good side. So how in the hell is it necessary for me to belong to an institution that isn't doing God's work in order for me to be at peace with God? It makes absolutely no sense. Now, religions rule black people through the medium of fear. If you don't understand fear, you can't understand black religion. And this is another big difference between the ancient African spirituality taught by our ancestors and what is being taught in the church, in the mosque, and all other temples. And I refer to the church, I'm talking about all black religions, not just Christianity. But they use fear. They inoculate and intimidate their followers with fear. fear. And this fear is so debilitating, Brother Curtis, that the fear takes over the common sense and intellectual process of black people to the point where you are afraid to do what? Question the nonsense that you are being fed. You are terrified about questioning the possibility that maybe Muhammad is not the prophet of God. You are terrified about questioning the possibility that maybe what you're reading in the Bible is not the words of Jesus Christ. You are terrified about questioning the possibility that maybe the name Allah is not the only name for God. Okay, maybe Jesus was not the only son of God, but you're terrified. Why? Because the church and the mosque have taught black people that to question the doctrine, to become curious about the dogma, okay, is to earn God's displeasure, which means what? Religions are institutions of ignorance. And I know some of the listeners are going to have a hard time swallowing this pill, but in order for us to wake up, we have to get out of our paralysis of analysis. We are afraid to analyze the different systems and processes and leaders and behaviors that we see amongst the race. And in order for us to get from where we are to where we need to be, in order to make material progress, political progress, spiritual progress, economic progress, we first have to make intellectual progress. We have to improve our ability to think and think deeply about everything. And one of the things that we have to analyze is how religions function by way of the ignorance of its followership. Simply believe what I'm telling you. Don't question it. I was raised Islamically. My father was a Sunni Muslim, still is. I was a Sunni from birth until my 10th grade year. Then my father became a follower of the Shia tradition of Islam. My mother's family, so that's my paternal side. My maternal side, they were Christian. I have an uncle who's a minister. My paternal grandmother, my father's mother, who is the one of the great nieces of Frederick Douglass, she's a Jehovah's Witness. One of my paternal aunt's husband, he was a member of the 5% Nation. I've had members in my family who are members of the Nation of Islam. So I've had a little bit of everything within my family system. And growing up, one of the things that always fascinated me, because I've always been a deep thinker. That's why I decided to become a psychologist, because I just love to think about the mind and study the way people behave. But as a young child, Brother Curtis, it always interested me how people would take something and believe it without any proof behind it. To take something and believe it without any proof behind it. But religion has that miraculous ability to make people believe. Why? Because people are inoculated with the fear of divine retribution for the possibility that you may not be believing in something that is true. But in spirituality, God is not this great retributionist. He's not.
Okay. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'm going to have a discussion with the rabbi. Was Shanti to marry him about that clip? All right, we're going to the break. We'll be right back.
Did you realize that right now, one of every 3 drivers of the road is cruising around in a state of skepticism? Why? Because they're full of questions about how much value their car insurance company is actually bringing to the party. And the way these drivers are getting answers is by shopping and comparing. If you're one of them, State Farm agent Mike Whitford in Las Vegas can help you get to a better state. If all of that is starting to make you feel a little less skeptical, now's the time to call State Farm agent Mike Whitford in Las Vegas at 702-463-2400. That's 702-463-2400, and get to a better state with State Farm.
Okay, Rabbi, was Shanti to marry him? Are you with me?
Sure am.
All right, welcome to the show, and I just want to welcome you back. And I
Thank
know
you.
you've been sitting here listening with me, and you've been listening to that clip. And so now we're going to have a discussion, just the two of us. My other guests didn't arrive, so we're going to move forward. And I would like for you to go ahead, and I saw you taking notes while you were listening to the clip. So that means that you're going to have plenty to say to me. Just so you know, anybody that wants to know, that was a interview on YouTube, and that interview was with Doctor. His name was Doctor. Uh, Umar Abdullah Johnson is Umar Abdullah Johnson is his name, and it was an interview with him and another gentleman. So I think the other gentleman's name was Curtis. So anyway, that's something that I pulled up. I thought it was something really interesting to talk about here on the Wiley the Show today. So I just want to get your feedback, Rabbi Washanti Tamari Ham. Do you feel like that's where the Black church is headed, for the future? And what do you think about that clip? Go ahead, talk to me.
Okay, if I may say first, I'd like to say hello to the Hebrew nation because I've been criticized for not saying hello.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
I'd like to say, give a shout out to the Hebrew nation on the East Coast, the Midwest, and the West Coast, and the Deep South. So I did say that. Now, it's very obvious here that this Dr. Johnson is just a simple heathen. Okay, he
No name calling.
well, a heathen simply means that someone who does not believe in the Lord.
Okay, all right.
Yah.
Well,
okay, he does not believe in Yah. I didn't listening to him. He struck me with humanisticism, Egyptology, and he also covered Islam. So for learned people and for spiritual people, the audience out there, I would venture to say that they were kind of feeling uncomfortable too.
Okay.
Case in point, let me say this, and I would encourage the audience to go grab your pencils real fast and get a piece of paper because I want to give you some outright scriptures. The reason we have so many different religions in the United States and Europe and all over the world is because when the Israelites were taken into slavery in 70 AD with that great Hebrew war with the Romans, the books were closed, so to speak. Other words, Psalms 147th division of Psalms, verse number 19 to verse number 20. Because of sake of time, I'll just kind of recite it for you and you have it. Remember, that's Psalms 147th division of Psalms, passages number 19 through 20. It tells us very emphatically that the Most High only gave his laws and his statutes and his commandment and his words to the nation of Israel. He didn't give it to no Gentile nation. So when the Israelites were taken into slavery, and went into, of course, you know that I teach from the premises of biblical archaeology and Hebrew archaeology that the Negro today is primarily made up of the tribe of Judah, Benjamin, Simeon. And so basically, we know that once the Negro and the Northern Kingdom, which is Gad, the Native Americans, and the various other ethnic groups, once they went into slavery, people like Martin Luther, the Catholic Church, the Methodist Church, all of these Gentiles, they meant well, but they did not receive a direct revelation from the Most High. He only gave it to one nation, and that is the Israelites. The scripture says, for there is one body, one faith, one baptism. Well, then why do we have over 6,000 different denominations in the world? Okay, and that includes Islam. So when this man says here, Dr. Johnson, he says that part of the problem with the black people are that they have been separated and they lost their African religion. There's no such thing as an African religion. There are 50 African nations in the world, in West Africa, East Africa, South Africa, and they all speak different languages and they all have different tribal practices. So that doctor there, obviously, he didn't really have a realistic concept on what he was saying. Second point, he talked about holiness. Holiness has nothing to do with the condition of the African American, if I may say, the Negro, Jew. that's in the state of America or in Western Hemisphere, the Eastern Hemisphere, wherever. Holiness has nothing to do with his psychological, social, economical situation today here in the Western Hemisphere. Holiness simply means to be set aside. It means to be separated. It means to be consecrated, separated for a sacred work. That's all holiness means, whether it be in the Old Testament or the New Testament. It simply means to be separated. Has nothing to do with a condition economically, socially, and all that. So that's one of the points. Now, again, now if you go there and take your little pen and paper, I want you to turn to Colossians the 2nd chapter, verse number 8. And Apostle Paul tells us, he says, "Beware, let no man beguile you with vain philosophies." Okay, basically what this doctor was giving us was a bunch of humanistic vain philosophy based on the premise of the black man being an African. Okay, now, and then if you stay there in that same chapter, Colossians the 2nd chapter, and you right there, verse number 8. Now, if you go down into verse number 20, from 20 through 23, you'll see the Apostle Paul tells you that all religions that have been created by man from his own inclination, from his own expiring to do something good. Okay, Paul says that they have little bit of profit in them. They only helps us a little bit. Why? Because it does not change our Adamic nature. The problem with man is he is a fallen creature. Genesis, the 2nd chapter, verse number 16 and 17. And the scripture says, "And Elohim took the man and placed him in the garden and said, Behold, whatever fruit of the tree, all the trees in the midst of the garden thou may eat freely of, but whatever the tree in the middle of the garden thou shalt not eat, for the day that thou eat, thou shalt surely die." Well, unfortunately, we know about Eve eating the fruit, but the brunt of leadership was not on Eve. It was on Adam, because Adam carried the 7 billion people in his loins today. He was the prototype. We are all prototypes of Adam. So the scripture says that when Adam ate the fruit, Genesis the 3rd chapter, man died spiritually. Remember what he told him, Genesis 2:16 and 17. He tells the man, "The day you eat that fruit, thou shalt die." Well, spiritual death occurred. And when spiritual death occurred, sin came. So man had a sinful nature. So when the brother tells us here, Mr. Dr. Johnson, that all we have to do is look within ourselves and find God, that is erroneous. Because man is spiritually dead and Elohim is alive. So when he first created man, Genesis 1:26, 27, 28, he says, "Behold, let us create man in our own image." Well, part of that image was a spirituality to be able to worship and commune with the Most High. When man died, first physical death came, first spiritual death came, and then physical death came.
Okay, so we're gonna take a break in just a second here, a couple seconds here. We're gonna take a break, and what I want to ask you to think about while we're going on the break is about the financial portion that he spoke on. If you took any notes on that, and what would your elaboration be on what he said about the tithing part? We're gonna be right back.
Did you realize that right now, one of every 3 drivers of the road is cruising around in a state of skepticism? Why? Because they're full of questions about how much value their car insurance company is actually bringing to the party. And the way these drivers are getting answers is by shopping and comparing. If you're one of them, State Farm agent Mike Whitford in Las Vegas can help you get to a better state. If all of that is starting to make you feel a little less skeptical, now's the time to call State Farm agent Mike Whitford in Las Vegas at 702-463-2400. That's 702-463-2400, and get to a better state with State Farm.
Okay, we're back. And tithing, the financial part that he talked about in the video, what is your elaboration on that?
Well, as I said last week, all men, there are men that are out there doing a great job, whether it be white, black, or whatever ethnic group that they are representing. There are men that are totally trying to do the right thing. Not all ministries are in the business for money. Now, you have to understand the tithing system. The tithing system comes from the Leviticus priesthood, because the Leviticus priests, their job was to minister 24/7 around the temple. So they didn't get a chunk of land. All of the 12 sons of Jacob got a land when they moved into the Canaan, but except for the Leviticus priesthood. So since they wasn't allowed to get land, a geographical square piece of land, and their job was primarily to minister around the tabernacle. And part of ministering around the tabernacle was they had to offer sacrifices for the various sins that of the Israelite nation that the different people from the tribes were committing. So what the Most High told Moses and Aaron, he told them, set up a system to have each one of the tribes to give 10% of their offering for the Levites. So tithing was created to take care of the priests who were basically ministering 24/7 around the temple. Now,
so is that in today and in the future?
Now, if you look in the New Testament, you don't see tithing in the New Testament. Malachi is the last book to talk about the tithing. So you don't see tithing, but there are worthy causes. Now, if you have a brother or missionary family overseas and they're working and they can't work in that particular country, and you have a mother church, well, it is feasible for that mother church, if they want to take out a certain percent of their offering and bless that and help cover the expenses. So now if you have a pastor that's working full time, and I'm not talking about going into the office, kicking back and watching TV. Okay, I'm talking about a guy that's out there putting it down, visiting the sick, and you know this guy is literally working and he's working for the saints. Well, there wouldn't be anything wrong with you legitimately giving the first fruits of your offering, whether that be 10%, 5%. That there is nothing in the New Testament that says you have to give 10%, 5%. We know what tithing was created. Now remember, now tithing was also it wasn't monetary necessarily. You could tithe the Leviticus, the priests with calves, with birds, with corn. So that's ultimately where the tithing system comes from. Now again, ministries have to have finance. You need finance to keep the lights on.
Right.
There's a difference from what Paul told Timothy. Filthy lucre is when preachers take advantage of the ministry. They're basically, quote unquote, pimping the ministry. White preachers do it, Caucasian preachers, do it, as well as Negro preachers. You're always going to have swindlers. Swindlers is nothing new. There were swindlers in Paul's time, like there's swindlers today. So there is a legitimate need for finance, but the Spirit of the Lord gives us common sense, and the body itself has common sense when you know when the man is doing something that's unpeculiar to godliness and righteousness.
Okay, so what about the portion on the clip where he mentioned that people are trying to pay their way into the kingdom, and he also said that the rich people they're paying a whole lot more tithes than everybody else, so they feel like if they give millions of dollars to the church, that's their road to salvation. What do you say about that?
Well, that's true too as well. What we have to understand, once again, part of the problem with the Protestant churches and Christianity, period. Now, we know that Deuteronomy 28 and 36 tells us Moses prophesies to the Israelites that, hey, you know what? You're going to go into slavery, and part of your curse of being in slavery is you're going to have to worship the religion of those nations that take you into slavery. Well, all religions that came over here, all of your Protestant churches that came over here from England are part of that curse that we talked about, where the Most High never spoke to John. Case in point, when Paul Waldendian, who's the founder of the original Baptist Church in England, the Most High never spoke to him. John Wesley, who's the founder of the Methodist Church, the Most High never spoke to him. Because if the Most High spoke to those two guys, why do they have two different churches? Why do they do things? Why do they have two different belief systems? So my point to that question answer is that we have to understand something. All of these churches, 90% of the churches that are doing their own thing in Christianity, there is nothing in the scriptures that teach Christianity. The apostles only, Christianity, as we talked about 6 months ago when I was here, Christianity was never meant to be a religion. It was a derogatory name that the first century Hebrew Jews, the Gentiles, were calling them Christians as a way of, it would be the same way to call a black man the N-word today. In the first century, when the Gentiles called the first century church, the first century church was not a European church. It was a black indigenous Hebrew church. When the Greeks called those black indigenous Jews Christian, it was to be negative. So all of the churches that are calling themselves that came out of the Roman Catholicism today, call themselves Protestants, their whole concept of what the Bible teaches as far as offerings, tithing, is wrong.
It's wrong.
It's wrong.
Okay.
And I just gave you the scriptures, Colossians 2 and 8,
Okay.
Colossians 2, verse 20 through verse 22, Psalms 147, 19 through 20 will tell you. This is why you have 6,000 denominations.
Okay. So tell me this, Rabbi Washante. You notice in the clip that he mentioned about people feeling that they have to go to church or they have to be a member of a religious organization. What is your response to that? Do you feel that people should or must be in a church in order to have a relationship with the Almighty Creator?
Two things. We have to remember. We got to go back to the Garden of Eden. When man died...
Well, don't take me too far back.
Well, this is...
We're going future now. We're going future.
You got to understand the future. In order to understand the future, you got to have a solid grasp and realisticality on why you're in that condition. So you got to go back and see the consequences of that condition. When man dies spiritually, universally, there's a deep longing in men today. They're walking around spiritually dead, but there's in their consciousness, the Most High put it in all human beings. This is why you go to these pagan tribes and you see them worshiping something. It's universally in man to worship the Most High. But the problem is man is dead in his trespasses and sin. So this is why Israel was supposed to be the light of the world. Isaiah, the 49th chapter, and verse number 6 will tell the audience and will tell us today that Israel was supposed to bring that light to the Gentile nations. And because we didn't bring that light, you see the whole world is in basically darkness when it comes to religion. But yet in all men from all 7 continents of the world to the primitive tribes in Asia or the Amazons, there's a longing to worship. So it was universally put in man from Genesis 1, 26 and 27 and 28 when he was first created. And he lost it there in the 3rd chapter, Genesis, and in the 4th chapter. So absolutely. Now, it is good. The scripture says, where there are 2 or 3 gathered in the Most High Son's name, there would he be in their presence. So fellowship breeds power, unity. So it is good to be with a body where you can have that fellowship, where you can have that mutual exchange. So absolutely, scriptures, I believe this is, don't quote me on it, but you can find it there. It should be Hebrews, the 10th chapter, and I believe it's verse number 26, where it says, forsaken not the assemblies amongst yourselves, seeing that the day is vastly approaching. So there's benefits there. And then over in Ephesians, he tells the brothers and sisters, hey, come together, worship together, build each other up in songs and hymns, offering your praises as a sweet sour smear, sweet fragrance to the Most High. So absolutely.
Okay. So then, of course, what about the point that he made when he said that people are going to the churches, constantly going to the churches, but then they're coming out with nothing, or they had a lot of excitement, they had a lot of, I guess music or whatever, blah, blah, blah going on. But then when they came out with nothing. What is your response?
Okay, now this is to all churches, but let's just keep this where it is today with the black church.
That's what I'm talking about. It's the black church.
The problem now,
I'm actually talking about the future of the black church. So, we're trying to say, is this, where's the black church going in this in that aspect? Okay. So in response to my question that I just asked you, where's the black church going in relation to their worship style? Are they going in, are they just continuously going and not getting nothing out of it? Or is there need to be a change in that area, or what?
Absolutely. The problem right now with the black church, and it didn't just start, it started about 70 years ago. In fact, it started when we got out of slavery. And the black churches never shook off the religion of the slave masters. They never shook that off. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago, how I explained to you how blacks got in, we call themselves Baptist Methodists. And today, this is why you're seeing such a travesty in the black church, where it's more emotionalism rather than real spiritualism.
Okay.
Because we're worshiping a religion that does not belong to us.
Okay, so let's talk about the emotionalism part.
Okay. Well, emotionalism is just hype. Okay, it's like the brother said. He was on point with that. It's hype. You get all frazzled up and you're feeling good, but at the end of the day, there's no spirituality there. And the scripture said, he that worship the Father must worship him in spirit and truth. John, I think it's 4:24. So the fact of the matter is, first of all, I have 2 points that I wanted to really bring out to give some substance to this, so we can end this really well today.
Mm-hmm.
And the 2 things is the future of the black church hinges upon 2 important things.
Go ahead.
Number 1, there are about 18 million black Christians today in America. And there are about 5 million, they're about 18 to 25 million. Okay. And there are about 5 major black denominations. What there needs to be an interfaith summons of all of your black churches. They need to come together, each denomination, and they need to have a meeting. And that meeting needs to be consistent. They need to get their best Bible scholars, and they need to sit down and they need to go in the scriptures. Number 1, they need to identify, are the people over there in Palestine who claim to be the chosen people? Every black preacher in every major black denomination needs to, at this summit and at this meeting, they need to look at the scriptures and compare those people. Are the Ashkenazi Jews God's, Elohim's chosen people? Number 2, once they diligently search the scriptures, and this is Bible, according to Acts the 17th chapter, verse number 10, it tells us that the Bereans, they searched the scriptures to see whether those things be true that Apostle Paul was preaching. So this is biblical precedence to do that. And then the second thing that they need to do, now if they can't do it, second thing that they need to do is, now, once they come to the conclusion that those people, the Jewish people, are not the chosen people according to Moses, the 10th chapter of Genesis, 10, from chapter number 10, Genesis 10, 2 through 5 will tell you that the people that's occupying Canaan today, calling themselves Jews, are not the chosen people. Now, the black church needs to come to that understanding. Number 2, what they need to do, once they come to the gripping reality that the people that they were taught to believe was the chosen people are not the chosen people, then they need to look at themselves, compare themselves to Deuteronomy 28, Leviticus 26, Jeremiah 17, Amos 3, and so on and so on. And once they do that diligent search and come to the realization that they are the people that the scriptures spoke about, and that they are the descendants of the Moses, the Aarons, the Abraham. Now, if they can't do that, but if they do that, then they will have relevance. Then they will be able to heal their communities. They will be able to redeem their kids' lives. We will have some reprieve with the curse that is over us right now. Now, if they can't do it on the global, on the international interfaith unity, then they can break it down and do it by denominations. The Church of God in Christ, the Missionary Baptist, the Baptist Convention, the AME, you owe it. Every preacher that's listening out here, every pastor that's listening, you owe it, and you are under divine judgment if you don't take the time to teach your people to go into the scriptures and see exactly who the chosen people are. Okay.
Are you
I got more, but I don't want to let time get away from us.
Sound like you trying to get kind of loose on the Waleena show. Is that what you're doing?
I'm bringing it.
Well, you got quite a bit of free reign today. You know, this is the last show.
Right, I'm making up.
This is part 4. This is the final cut for the future of the black church. So you do have quite a bit of free reign. It looks like you are running with it. So go ahead. You have something
now,
else.
I want our audience to. I don't care if you are Protestant, Methodist, or whatever you are, Caucasian, Indian, or whatever you are, black. It is tremendously important that somehow you pray. Because, see, you have to understand something. What Christianity has done, what the Catholic Church has done, what the evangelicals have done, they have purposely, there are men that are in the Christian movement that are making millions of dollars, and they have a staff, and through their staff, they know all about biblical prophecy. Do you not know that the United States of American government know who the Israelites are? But I challenge each and every one of these beautiful people that are listening under my voice to somehow or another pray and ask the Most High to give you the words to go to your pastor, to go to your elder, to find out who, why. Because if you, now notice this, biblical prophecy deals with one group of people today, and it deals with the Jews, the Israelites. Now, how could Christianity be teaching us to correct biblical prophecy if they don't even have the right people? Think about that. Christianity has been teaching for 600 years the wrong people. Now, if I'm going to teach you biblical prophecy, and I expect to teach it right to you, but I got the key players confused and mixed up. They're teaching us that the Jewish people are the chosen people. But that's not what Moses says. That's not what Jeremiah says. That's not what Daniel says. So if you're going to continue to follow some of these fallacies in Christianity, especially as the fate of mankind's destination collides with biblical prophecy, I'm afraid that there are going to be a lot of disappointed people. But it'll be too late then. The scripture says, seek ye the Lord while he may be found. And the scripture says that the Most High says, at once upon a time at a man's ignorance, he winked. But now he's calling all men to the truth and the knowledge. So it does matter. Biblical prophecy deals with one group of people. And if Christianity is teaching it wrong, then you must question the remaining aspect of their teaching when it comes to biblical prophecy. You got to have the key players. The Israelites are the key players. And if you simply look there at Genesis 10, 2 through 5, it tells you Gomar, Japheth's sons, Gomar, Ashkenazis, and the people today that are Gomar's descendants are right there in the promised land calling themselves Jews.
Okay, listen, if there's any callers out there that'd like to call and ask this man a question before this this rabbi a question before we leave the air today, you can feel free to do so at 702-650-5588. That's 702-650-5588. And if you're calling long distance from anywhere else in the country, 1-800-366-8883. That's 1-800-366-8883. Call in and ask him whatever it is that you want to know about what he's talking about today, what he has to say, or if you want to elaborate on the clip that I played earlier, that's your prerogative to do so. It's whatever you choose. But I'd like to hear from you right now, if you will. Call in at 702-650-5588 for local callers, and 1-800-366-8883 for anyone that's calling from out of state. So I really would like to hear from you today to talk to this gentleman. Hold on, we have a caller. Hello, caller, how are you?
Hi, this is Diana Thomas. I was trying to figure out.
Okay, Diana, where are you calling from?
I was about to say Inglewood, California. That's where I'm from, but I'm calling from Las Vegas.
Okay, Diana. Thank you so much for tuning in and listening. You got the floor, girl. Go for it.
Okay, this is messing me up.
Okay.
I know he's a black man.
Look, the Wildina Show has a tendency to do that to people sometimes.
No, I think he's a black Jew.
Okay, go for it. Talk to him.
I think he's a black Jew. I know he's a black man. Ain't nobody gonna tell me, and nobody can dispute that he's a black man. They can't do that because ain't no white man got no daggone feet of carpet, and they don't have it unless they put some tan on it. And he's a black man. He's a black Jew.
He is black. Talk to him. He's right here. You got a question for him?
The dude ain't got no blonde hair, and he ain't got no stringy hair. No disrespect to nobody. But that is a black man. And I will be looking up on it, and I don't know about the Palestine, but to me, the whole world, it's like I tell everybody, it is an ethnicity of black descendants all over. We hold the whole world, period.
Mm-hmm.
And I know Jesus is black. And we do, as a black church, we do need to stop dancing and prancing and all that. We need to put that word in everybody. Not just us, but They all up on it. Joe Osteen and all of them up on there trying to imitate the black church too. Let's keep it real. Okay? Everybody running around trying to get the money. It ain't about the money. It's about the word. He should be rich. I mean, he ain't said come around with no Lexus and all of that good action. He said spread that word.
You said they need to stop dancing and prancing?
Dancing and prancing. And because that's what I see. That's why they getting busted out. That's why God is exposing them, because they over there trying to get people's money. Me, personally, I go spread the word every day. I don't need the money. Because I can leave right now today. The word is free. It ain't for a pay. And y'all ain't getting paid on the radio right now. You spreading the word, and I'm getting that word.
Well, I tell you what. I am so happy that you're tuning in and listening, and it looks to me as though you're getting some type of information, as I can say, on the Wiley Show here from this gentleman. Would you like to ask him a question? I have another caller right behind you.
Okay, yes. How will the Palestine explain that to me?
Quickly.
Okay, you got to remember that even the Palestinians, that land don't belong to them either. The Palestinians was put there through the Turkish and the British. Those are aliens too. The real people like you and me, that's our land, and we will be back there. Now, the Jews, the Jewish people, they were put there in 1946. They come from a place called ancient Central Asia. Europe, a place called the Black Sea area. They're called Khazarians. So they changed their name also in 1946. So that's a new name for them. Their real name is Khazarians. Ashkenazis, Khazarians. They're Sephardi Jews and Ashkenazi Jews.
Okay. One more thing, man, because I know, my God, I don't know about that Palestinian stuff.
Okay. Quickly, I got another call on hold.
Okay, I'm leaving the office. I don't get that one. All I know, he's black. That's all I know. He's black. That's all I know.
Okay. Okay. Thanks for tuning in. Okay. All right. Hello, caller. How are you?
Hi, Ronlena. God bless you and your guest.
Okay. And what is your name and where you calling from?
Denise, Las Vegas, Nevada.
Thank you very much, Denise, for tuning in. I appreciate you, and thanks for the blessing. What would you like to say today to my guests, or what's going on?
Yes.
Speak.
Respectfully, I just want to ask your guest.
Go ahead.
What's your point? And what I mean by that is all of this things that you're saying about Middle East and Palestine. Please tie that into individual salvation, accepting Christ as your Savior, and accepting eternal life, God's gift to us. My thing is we all need to be individually spiritual, of course, focused on the Savior, and groups and religion, all of that exists. But as you see, it's a bunch of chaos. So respectfully, what's your point? How does that tie in to salvation? Please elaborate.
Okay, really quickly. The scripture says in John 8:32, the Messiah said, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. The problem with it right now is Israel is sleeping. They're just waking up. All of what the Negro, so-called Negro, has been taught since he's been in North America has been basically a lie. Primary principle. Biblical scriptures teach Hebrew heritage. If you want to know the truth is that we're the Jews. Now, ignorance is not bliss when it comes to biblical prophecy and teaching what the Messiah said. If it was not important, then he wouldn't have told us that you shall know the truth. So I wish I had more time.
Yeah. Denise, we got to go because I need to play this last clip before we go off the air, okay? And thank you so much for calling in. I appreciate you listening. This guy is gone for the day, so shoot me an email if you'd like to hear more from him, and I'll send you his information, okay? All right. Listen, everybody, we're about to go, and I want you to hear this clip. This is my closing thought for today. This is my closing clip. Thank you, Rabbi, so much for tuning in with us and being with us for the past 4 shows. Okay, and we're getting ready to be out of here. We have 1 minute left, and I'm 3 minutes left, and I'm going to share this with you all. This is Maya Angelou. Still, I rise.
Let's go one night or another with fear.
or pain or loss or disappointment. And yet each of us has awakened and risen, somehow made our ablution, seen other human beings, and said, "Morning, how are you? Fine, thanks, and you?" It's amazing. Wherever that abides in the human being, there is the nobleness of the human spirit. Despite it all, black and white, Asian, Spanish, Native American, pretty, plain, thin, fat, vowed or celibate, we rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness affect you? Why are you beset with gloom? Just 'cause I walk as if I have oil wells puffing in my living room. Just like suns and like moons, with the certainty of times. Just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eye, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. That's my sassiness affect you. Don't take it so hard just 'cause I laugh. As if I have gold mines digging in my own backyard. You can shoot me with your words. You can cut me with your lies. You can kill me with your hatefulness. But just like life, I rise. Does my sexiness offend you? Oh, does it come as a surprise that I dance as if I have diamonds at the meeting of my eyes? Out of the huts of history's shame I rise. Up from a past rooted in pain I rise. A black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling, I bear in the tide. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak miraculously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And so, naturally, there's a rising. That was Still I Rise by Maya Angelou. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in for the past 4 weeks of Black History Month. We've enjoyed it. We've had a lot of information being shared with us by Rabbi Washanti Tamariham. Thank you so much. Y'all know who I am. I'm Wally, the Las Vegas Queen of Gospel, and we're going to see you next week. And guess what? I'm bringing on my listeners and my viewers next week. I'm going to sit here in the studio with listeners and viewers. We'll see you next week.